joining today with the title here is Boosting Remote Employee Retention with the help of HR data. So excited to chat with you today. Before we hop into it though, I do want to introduce myself. So I'm Jerry Mueller. I'm an ex-professional volleyball athlete in Sweden and Germany, and also played on the Canadian national team. I've also worked at Mount Royal University to develop a sense of belonging, engagement, and employee development. I've also been a speaker and host in many webinars, and I have a passion for helping HR professionals with productivity, employee engagement, happiness, recognition, and retention techniques, which we'll be going into today as well. I'm now the culture consultant here at Bucket List Rewards. And on theme, I'd love to share my bucket list item, and it's actually to go travel to Machu Picchu. That's what kind of my next travel. So if you guys have any tips, please type that into the chat box as well. I'd love to get any recommendations too. I also wanted to now just kind of open up the floor a little bit for some icebreaker questions. So I thought it'd be fun. We really want to have a lot of value for today's session as well. So maybe if you want to type in the chat any fun team building ideas or events that you've done recently as an HR group, so we can share some ideas. For example, what we're doing on Friday is we have a little like murder mystery virtual event as a team we're all going to go to, hopefully get some costumes up on the Zoom call. That's a couple of ideas, but I'd love to hear from you. Does anyone else have kind of some tips or any events that you're doing to kind of help with that engagement piece? You can go ahead and use the chat box as well. Oh, pumpkin carving, Lindsay. Yep. Yeah. That's
Clue.
Yeah.
That's such a good one.
Oh, that's a good one too as well. Yeah. The pumpkin carving I've done as well too. It's nice to have that Zoom and you get to show the camera and get people engaged that way. Yeah. Those are some great ideas too.
I also love the virtual escape room. That was a really fun team building event.
Yeah, there you go. Escape room as well. Paul's on the same page as you, Jenna.
Yeah.
So wellness challenges. Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks. Yeah, thanks for your feedback there as well. I want to do one more icebreaker question to kind of start to go into the theme of today's presentation. So if everyone wants to type in the chat as well, what's your favorite employee retention tactic? What's some things that you've tried that works, to see if we'll maybe cover that today. Love to hear from you for that as well. Onboarding surveys, that's great. Yeah, getting feedback. I know it's very important. Yeah, bonuses, money, I get that too, Eric. Yeah, that's a great point too. Yeah, definitely getting some surveying and peer-to-peer 360-degree feedback is also very helpful. Absolutely. Wow. Yeah, great feedback interaction already, everyone. Thanks so much. So you can keep typing messages in there, of course, as the presentation goes on. But before we hop in, I do want to talk about a very exciting slide here, is just going through some housekeeping from us. So before we get rolling, at the bottom of your screen, you'll notice that there's a few buttons. The first one that I'll draw your attention to is the chat button. So obviously a lot of you are already using that today. So we'd love to have an interactive session. So feel free to engage and participate. Also, if you're having technical issues, pop it in there too. We'll do our best to help you out. The other button that's important too is there's the Q&A button. So as the presentation is going on, feel free to submit some questions and we'll work our hardest to try and get those answered near the end. So feel free to engage that way as well. And also during the course of the presentation, I'll be popping up a few polls. So you'll see that and you'll get prompted to answer those polls if you wish as well. And we'd love your participation there. And then at the conclusion of the presentation, you're going to earn your professional development credits for your participation and engagement. So stay tuned and I'll post those at the end. And lastly, of course, this is being recorded and we'll share the recording afterwards as well as the slides. So you can have that as a resource for you as well. So today's webinar is brought to you by two great companies. The first is Bucket List Rewards. It's the #1 employee engagement and recognition platform. And the second is Orgnostic, and it's a people analytics platform for strategic HR leaders. They help organizations get answers to the critical questions about your people and organization. But I am even more excited and have the pleasure of introducing our two speakers today. The first is Luka Babic. He's the co-founder and CEO of Orgnostic, people analytics platform. So prior to founding Orgnostic, Luka was the head of people ops, CHRO, and a board member at a tech unicorn, Infobit. Before that, Luka worked as a researcher at Harvard, very impressive, and he combines his industry knowledge and his deep connection with the academic community to tackle the challenge of making HR a truly data-driven strategic function. And maybe to stick on theme, Luka, you have a bucket list item that you want to share with the group?
I do. I remember my bucket list item. It sounds very strange when someone is introducing you. Well, I love music, and I've played guitar for a very long time, and I love actually playing in a band. So in the bucket list, I actually do have something that is more of an aspirational thing, and I really want to play a big concert, and at some point in my life. So that's something that I really want to do. So that's a big one.
That's a great answer, and also motivates you to practice too.
It does.
It does. Awesome. Thanks, Luka. And our second speaker today is Jenna Levisani. She's the culture evangelist of Bucket List Rewards and Recognition. Jenna's experience in the healthcare sector, the food services and nutrition industry, fitness industry, and the software industry has made her an advocate for employee recognition and wellness. With over 10 years experience working in customer, client, and patient service roles, Jenna takes pride in putting others first and providing an experience that ensures people feel heard and their needs are being met. And Jenna told me that her bucket list item is Switzerland, is heading to Switzerland.
Yeah, it's on my travel bucket list of the many places, but yeah, that's a big one.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing. And with that, Jenna, I'd love to hand it off to you and get things started.
Yes, awesome. Thank you so much, Darren. Thanks for the super warm welcome. Really looking forward to today. And thanks everyone for your time. Your time's super valuable. So we're so excited that you're spending it with us today. I'll just quickly go over what we're going to be covering in today's session. So we'll be touching on the role of HR data in a distributed world, how to make the best use of HR data to boost employee retention in a remote workplace, the right questions to ask to get a good overview of employee retention and engagement. And today's session is going to be interactive, so please, we welcome your questions, comments, feedback. Please utilize that chat box. I'll be asking some questions throughout as well, so always looking forward to hearing your thoughts. And we'll just head into our first slide there. So getting into this first slide, over the past few years, many people have worked remotely at some point. For lots of people, this was a huge change for everyone involved: employees, employers, managers. Employees had to learn how to navigate work-life balance, making sure they had the proper equipment to work from home. Many managers had a tough time understanding what was happening in their organization and how to best support their teams through tough times. So employee retention has been a big topic of discussion. You may have heard of the Great Resignation, the Great Reshuffle, the war on talent. These are all trends around recruitment, retention, and employee engagement. Many industries are also facing labor shortages. So there's over 11 million unfilled positions in the US, and turnover rates are also high. So the cost of voluntary turnover in the US is estimated to be about 630 billion. Which is huge. This rate has also increased 25.5% in 2020 versus 20.3% in 2013. 87% of people have actively considered switching jobs in 2022, and 65% of employees believe they can find a better position elsewhere. In the recent years, 52% of employees have felt burnt out, and 67% say that the feeling has worsened over the past year. Employee priorities have really shifted after the pandemic, especially with an emphasis on well-being and happiness. 63% of employees take sick days due to burnout. 51% of employees said they would heavily consider leaving their current organization for one that offers more support with things like burnout and stress. It's a really huge issue. 84% of HR directors agree that burnout is an issue that needs to be addressed in their organization. So how do we figure out the best way to build workplace culture and organizational practices that support our teams, increase employee engagement, well-being, and retention? So we'll just get into that on the next slide here. So talking about one solution is utilizing people analytics and intentionally investing in HR tools, tools that will give you the chance to use relevant employee data to inform your people management strategies. Why is having data on your team so important? Especially being in a distributed world where people are around each other all the time, it can be quite tough for managers to understand what's happening in their organization. Data can really help from that point of view. With data, you can truly support your team by identifying the cause of problems, implementing the right measurements based on the informed data, and anticipating future trends based on concrete evidence. Studies have shown that using people analytics increases efficiency of recruitment processes by 80%, increases business productivity by 25%, and employee turnover rates decrease by 50%. Of course, no two organizations are going to face the same issues and challenges in the exact same way. So making your HR process more data-driven and strategic can ensure that HR strategy aligns with the company's goals. So with all of that said, I'm going to pass things over to Luca to go over this a little bit more. Thanks so much, Luca.
Thank you, Jenna. So today, the part of my story is actually going to be something that I firsthand kind of experienced, and that's when I was leading an HR practice, building a people analytics function was something that was one of my top priorities as well. However, the things have to an extent changed when it comes to building a company in a remote setup or a hybrid setup that we have right now. So without further ado, let's kind of jump into why is remote and hybrid driving the need for analytics. So there are a couple of points here that drastically changed since 2020 when it comes to the people and culture functions, and that's the first one is just the extended use of HR technology, Jenna, that you were mentioning, right? So companies are starting to utilize this HR tech much earlier in their company life cycle, which as a result of that, there's more data that is being generated, and companies are not even aware of how much data they actually have underneath the tools that they are using early on in their company life. The other one that I noticed happening is this proximity bias issue. And what I mean by that is that out of sight, out of mind kind of syndrome. So people and managers, especially, are feeling the anxiety from the very fact that they're not seeing people, so they're not certain what are the things that are progressing and moving forward, which is a completely irrational sort of fear that appeared from 2020, but it's also affecting management in ways that they're just feeling more pressure in visualizing what's going on in the company, which is a pretty good sort of base work for HR to also start introducing analytics practices that are ethical and that make sense. When it comes to another point, it's that the work is become a bit more transactional in nature, in a sense that people are focusing on the task, and it's becoming a very task and skills driven workplace, which is also leading to, in a sense, of increased disengagement from the management perspective as well. What I mean by that is that people are mostly focusing on completing the tasks, and that is something that is a loss, that is a kind of a price that we are paying for the loss of further interactions and the socialization that is existing, that has existed in the traditional on-site company. When it comes to the frontline management, we are seeing in the past 2 years an incredible pressure on the frontline managers, which is also leading to higher turnover among the frontline managers, which is also causing the turnover chain reactions in the companies too. And the last thing that you mentioned is just lack of private life and work life boundaries, which is increasing this mental health risk, and the burnout. The burnout effect is definitely much more prominent right now than it ever was before, and it's also linked to this previous notion of people losing their social ties and networks, which is not all to say this is sounding very dramatic and whatnot. There are many benefits of flexibility of working remote, but these are some of the downfalls of us adjusting very quickly. And also kind of an opening field for the rise of people analytics in the space. And just moving forward, one of the things that I feel is my take on hybrid on people analytics is that whether it's the hybrid or not, people analytics practices should exist. And the reason why they should exist is to build proactive HR practice rather than the reactive one. And what I mean by that is that data help us create this certain agility in the HR work. It helps us install this build, measure, learn cycle, and it keeps that in the core of our employee lifecycle design. So one of the things that it allows us is to design processes to measure the success and failures and learn basically from those and iterate to the next version of the design until you make it perfect. So, thinking about just the setup, I think that the setup has definitely increased the chances of you successfully implementing people analytics practices. But when it comes to the basics, the core of it, it's just the same as it was before. And that's just focused on building the proactivity within the HR function. So to be as practical as possible, let's actually zoom into a framework that should help us get you started with people analytics. So this framework can help you design the set of pretty much North Star metrics to build your own proactive people practice. So what you're seeing on the screen right now, what I'm showing you here is the graph of a so-called employee lifetime value model. And what you can see here is the different lines that are sitting across the employee life cycle line. So the blue dots that you're going to notice here on the screen, they represent pretty much the critical moments that matter along the employee journey. So the difference between the two lines that you're observing here is the difference between the two experiences that can be expressed in the employee output. So shorter time, for example, shorter hiring time, or the steeper onboarding curve, or an optimal performance, promotion, compensation review experience, or culture experience check, even the exit decisions. All of these are moments that define how productive our employees will be and how long they will stay with the company, right? So when you think about the actual output element, that brings us to the intentional design of all of these experiences. So if we move forward to build the people analytics function properly, you need to have a map of all these moments that matter. So Jaron, maybe we can just jump into the next one. And that's, when you think about the mapping the process, think about designing all these moments that matter on, you can start with the simplification of the process, which is a linear curve, and think about what is the HR tech stack that will help you track all these business priorities along these moments, and think about the set of North Star KPIs, or just simplify it to the questions that you will need to measure to tell you whether you're doing a good job or not. So let's say if your current goal is to double your team, you would likely need to get interested into setting an ATS tool and think how you can get information about your funnel efficiency, or the quality of hire elements, or the candidate experiences. And for that, you might need a combo of data that is generated through your processes in applicant tracking system. You will need your turnover information. You will need your financial data, your candidate and employee service. So employee lifecycle is never linear, but this framework can help you simplify the process in your mind and think about all the models and the key questions that you want to answer along that way. So now what is important is the data infrastructure perspective, and that is that your data is going to come from multiple places, and you will need to create a certain common space so that you can make a data from surveys or performance speak with your recruitment and with your rewards data. And that way you can pretty much connect all the dots along the employee life cycle into a certain coherent story. And I cannot express how important it is to continually work on building this infrastructure for employee experience. So data will allow you to diagnose all the flaws in your system, to basically track your success and to capture the early warning signs for interventions. And I recently spoke to we can keep the previous one. There's a story that I would like to share. I recently spoke with one of the HR leaders. It was a few months ago, and this conversation really stuck in my head in such a way that it pretty much informs the way I think about the data and how I tend to build our product too. And he said, Luca, when I'm driving my car, for example, I'm not really interested in my engine oil levels, or the tires pressure, or my battery capacity, and the hundreds of other metrics that I'm expecting my car to track. But what I really want to know is how fast I'm going, and that's pretty much it. However, what I do want to know is that my car is going to alert me if any of those hundreds measurements are showing any failing signs, right? And I would like if the car would tell me that I should do something about it, because I don't want to crash or destroy my car as a result of those. And the same things goes with the employee experience. It's when you think about it, you want to build a capacity to track the multiple systems that can potentially lead to failure, and to have the strong set of these thresholds for different metrics. But that doesn't mean that you want to track all the time every single metric about your employees. You're going to focus on the business priorities that are going to interest you at that moment the most, and you're going to track them on a more regular basis. But they're all the other kind of systems of failure that you want to have in case something breaks. So that's the way that you pretty much create this kind of proactive practice. So moving to the next one, one of the things that I would like to focus us on is an actual case. So in the remote setup, as we heard from Jenna as well, turnover analytics has lately been a very important issue. And when you're designing analytics, you always want to start with the business question in mind, right? So instead of focusing on the turnover per se, let's say that your sales team right now is missing quotas for the past 6 months. And in this scenario, what you want to figure out is what's at the bottom of it, what's going on behind it. So you would want to determine what is going on with the sales department specifically. And one of the first things that I would want to diagnose is actual turnover. I would go into comparing the turnover rates between sales and the rest of the company. And we have one of the examples, for example, here of the metrics that you can track when it comes to comparison. So, you want to note whether there is an actual difference between the turnover in sales and the rest of the company, and whether that is something that you would expect. Then the next thing that I would look into to diagnose is the survival rate curves, to pretty much determine what are the points historically in the tenure of your sales when your sales are most likely to leave. What we can see here on the graph is that within the first year, before the first year and in between the first and the second year, you have the highest likelihood of actually losing employees, which significantly drops after that. So what you want to do as the next step, for example, is also look into the qualitative aspect of this, and that's figuring out what are the reasons why people are leaving. So note that for this kind of analysis, you need to have historical data on who and when is leaving, and you will need to have an implemented exit survey process to get to the qualitative gist of the data. In order to get something like this is like a side note and a piece of maybe an unsolicited advice, but don't ask the employees in the exit surveys why they're leaving, because you're likely not going to get nothing out of that. Instead, what you can do is ask them to tell you what they would expect to gain and what they would expect to lose by moving to the next employer. So what happens in that kind of dynamic is that what you create is basically a heat map that is telling you what are your employees willingly leaving on the table, what kind of benefits, what kind of elements and aspects of work you're focusing on right now that are actually not helping you with the retention practices, and what are some of your programs that you need to actually focus more of your focus to when it comes to, in this particular case, the sales retention. So now that we've seen an issue with the first year hires, and that they have, for example, issue here with the job fit, and that's the main qualitative reason why people are dropping, what we can do is to dive into the two moments that matter that can tell us more about this particular issue, and that's the recruitment process and the onboarding. So before jumping into that, there's this bonus thing that I forgot, and that's you've seen the exit reason distributions. We want to fill it in purely with the qualitative data so that you can interpret the numbers. And how you get to this is you can simplify the process by creating this triggering event for your survey. So every time there is an exit, for example, for your employee, you want to save your time of doing the admin and analysis work here, and just to create like an automation that is just going to feed in your data every time your employees are leaving, because that can just do the work for you in the background. So the next one is the step number 2, and that's when you think about one of the critical elements of the selection process to check first. It's the funnel, and you will see the metric in a second. One of the ways in which I always look into the recruitment funnel is not just the trickle downs, but looking beyond the funnel and checking into the consistency of the candidate journey. I'm not sure if anyone here, I would love to hear feedback on this, if anyone was using candidate journeys metric for the purpose of analyzing the funnel. But what it can tell you in this particular case is everyone having as equal as possible of an experience in the selection process. Because what we've seen in the past, and the studies show us, that consistency in the recruitment practices can lead to more predictable results. The other point that I would be checking this diagnostic, what we can see here is that there's a bit of a chaos when it comes to what are the kind of candidates, or what kind of flow the candidates are having. Some of them are jumping from an first interview to the on-site, then some of them are having a reference check, some of them are not, some of them are going to the offer phase straight from the first interview process and similar, which is showing you that, you know, our sales department in this particular case doesn't really have a consistent flow in the selection process, which might be one of the issues when it comes to this inconsistency in hiring that can lead to the first year turnover. The second point that I would look here is also the onboarding, and the onboarding can be checked again from a qualitative perspective from the surveys. I think someone was mentioning that they're using onboarding surveys, which is awesome to see. But if you kind of also create these context-driven trigger events that are going to tell you about the experiences about your employees and managers on the first day, and then within the first 90 days of being in the company, what you can also diagnose is whether you have certain issue with connecting the people with the organization, whether there are time to productivity issues and similar that can appear as the signals within the first 90 days. So if you look at the next metric here that we'll share in a second, it seems that here our onboarding is moving along really well. However, our recruitment process might be a bit broken in the sales department. So moving on to the next element or the next step is actually going to the ideation phase of what you're going to do. And this is the whiteboarding that I like to call. There are plenty of online solutions in a remote setup that can help you with mapping all these touch points in the sales selection process and generating ideas to improve them. But the idea is that to just push out as many solutions that you have for a particular problem here, whether it's the line manager trainings, the assessment batteries processes, and similar, and that you can evaluate by wording on a simple importance versus feasibility matrix to prioritize what are the things that you're going to try to do to fix the current process. And the last step in the process, what you want to do is to define the measurements of success of your initiative. So think about the questions of what are going to be your North Stars here. You know, what are going to be the leading metrics that are going to tell you that your sales are not going to miss the quota in the next 6 months. So we said that we want more consistency in the candidate journey. So that can be one of the metrics. The other can be the better quality of hire assessment that you can measure within the first 90 days of feedback of both employees and managers. And the last point would be the reduction in the first year turnover. So if we have, for example, these three metrics combined, ultimately they should be leading us to the lagging indicator, which is reflecting the sales hitting the quota or getting at least closer to them. So this way you're setting the targets for yourself and you're constantly revising them as the data pours in, and you're able to basically evaluate the success of your implementation and ultimately iterate on it. Moving to the last point, I would like to also conclude with the key takeaway points before maybe moving to the questions or some of the comments that we're having. So I would say that starting a proper people analytics practice or analytics journey starts with capturing the moments that matter. And I find this to be an essential step in any remote work experience environment. And that's an important framework to keep in mind when you're building a proactive HR practice. Next thing is getting the relevant business questions and tying them with the moments that matter so that you have the set of these North Star metrics to follow along the way. To get there, you would need to build an infrastructure that will allow you to scalably and easily track all these metrics. And here I'm talking about the HR tech and how that fits in, whether they have APIs and whether the data can communicate from one system to another. And that's after that is about creating the triggers to capture experiences along with the rest of the data that allow you to track this holistic view of your employees. And lastly, just build, measure, learn, and then revise and repeat. And that's something that I feel should be the guiding framework for most of the SME and even the bigger practices when it comes to just the HR approach. And this is what data can help quite a lot. So that would be pretty much it from my side. There are a couple of other points. I have 2 QR codes for you. One is Orgnostic is building this free People Analytics Masterclass series. If these are the topics of your interest, we have built an awesome 8-hour-long, 8 different lectures from the professionals within the People Analytics space that are teaching you some of the foundational stuff. We have educated and certified more than 3,000 HR professionals only this year. So I think it's worth the shot for everyone who is just passionate about this as much as I am. And the next one is we are also building this active community of people interested in people analytics practices. So if this is on top of your mind, there's a QR code. You can feel free to join our movement. We are on a mission to make people analytics practices as accessible and as possible to every company and HR professional globally. And we have this aim to create a bias-free and ultimately better decision-making process for HR and leadership teams. So if you're kind of in sync with that mission, feel free to join us along that way. So thank you everyone very much. And with that, I'm taking it to Jenna, I think, or no, there's a poll. Yeah, so I think Jaren is going to run this poll, which is mostly going to be about how do you measure employee retention and how satisfied are you with the way that that you're currently doing that?
Yeah, so everyone should see a poll kind of pop up on their screen. So I'll let it run for a little while. Awesome stuff too, Luca. I've learned a ton listening to you just right there. So thank you so much for all of that. We'll just let those answers roll in there too. And we have some great questions as well coming in. I have a few great ones from the chat and the Q&A. So as we go through these last few slides, everyone, please, if you have any questions, pop that into the Q&A and we'll get to it near the end. We'll also wait just a couple more seconds here for everyone to keep voting. There's 2 questions on there for everyone as well too, so you can make sure you get in there. A couple more rolling in. Right on. Okay, I'm going to end that poll. And then we got one more as well here. Actually, a couple more. So I'm going to end that. I'm going to pop it over to Jenna.
Yes, thanks, Jaren. And thanks, Luca. That was really, really awesome information, super valuable. Learned a lot as well, that's for sure. Yeah, getting into our first poll question here on a scale of 1 to 10, just because we love to hear your thoughts and feedback. How much did you enjoy today's webinar? 10 being absolutely loved it. And then in the chat, would love you to type away which topics resonated the most with you today.
Yeah, so the first one there, everyone, will be in the poll question, and then we'd love to get some information from you as well, and in the chat, just any different specific topics. Love to elaborate to in future webinars. So please share your feedback on there as well. Everyone's been doing great with the participation, so much appreciated. All right, I'm going to end that poll now. And then we can now hop, Jen, if you want to take the reins.
Yes. All right. Thanks, Jaren. Yeah, so as we said before, this webinar is brought to you by Bucket List Rewards, the #1 ranked recognition and rewards program in customer satisfaction and ease of use. We're very passionate and can help find solutions to lowering turnover, recognizing amazing work, and bringing your staff together by breaking down silos. We've built some awesome programs with all different size organizations, just to name a few: Royal Bank of Canada, Orlando Magic, and Community Health Systems, CHS. And for those of you interested today in learning more and would like some help with building amazing cultures with a rewards and recognition program, Jaren is going to pop up a poll question to see if you'd like to learn more on us and would like some help for best practices and any tips.
Yeah, so we'll let that run a few more too. And again, we have a few questions in. We're going to have lots of time, which is great for some of those questions. So I'll let that run a little bit more here for that poll.
Awesome.
Right on. And I'll end that and then maybe pass it over to Luca as well.
The shameless plug part. Yes. Well, Agnostic is the people analytics platform. Obviously, we are very passionate about the topic, and what we are mostly helping companies is getting from the messy data to insights. We built this system that can easily integrate data from multiple sources and visualize it and make sense out of it. So one of the things that we kind of firstly optimized for was the mid-market, and this is when we started getting a lot of traction, and then we moved up into more of the enterprises. And I know there was one question about how many organizations are using Agnostic and is it secure for large enterprises. We onboarded a couple of very big customers lately, and it also from the very beginning pushed us to go through the SOC2 Type 2 certifications and just having the double infrastructure for Europe and for US for the GDPR purposes and similar. So we are pretty tight on the security side when it comes to data. So yeah, definitely, if you're interested in Agnostic, more than happy to give you a tour and walk you through the product, either me or someone from the team.
Yeah, so I'll launch that one as well for people to be able to answer. Great info. Thanks so much, Jenna and Luca, for all that the stats. I'm a stat person myself when I was playing sports and things like that. So loved all the data. And that data really goes a long way to when presenting it to leadership and really coming to the true issue and trying to have solutions for that as well. So I definitely appreciate that. And we'll let this poll run for a few more seconds here before we dive in to the next section here. Right on. All right, I'll end that poll here. Thanks everyone for your input. So here, as you can see, we have our credits for you. So we really appreciate you joining today. These are the credits there. We're going to share this recording. I know that was a question as well. So the recording and the slides, so you can listen to it at the end of the recording as well. But maybe copy those down so you have them for your notes as well. So I'll give you a couple seconds to copy down those numbers. Right on. And then to finish things off, we do have a bit of a Q&A. So everyone's doing a great job of answering, of kind of putting a few in the box. So I'll kind of start off maybe by asking Luca. I know Paula had a great question in the chat box there. And just talking about in cases of SMEs, a big issue can be the objectivity of surveys. So even if they're anonymous, people might be somewhat scared to express their issues because they might be identified, which yeah, I totally get that too, Paula, great point. Any tips on dealing with those cases with the surveys?
Yeah, well, one of the things that I always like to do is to combine multiple sources of data. When it comes to surveys, the best thing is, there are certain things where people want to be anonymous. Sometimes people want to express themselves and kind of give you answers as honest as possible because they can help them. Having a third party kind of running the show when it comes to collecting the data for you is one of the steps where we've seen that the cases of kind of honesty or just the amount of information that is shared is increasing, as opposed to using tools like SurveyMonkey or similar or Google Forms that are just kind of putting the employees in a position where they feel that the data could be exposed and seen by their managers. So that's one of the ways that I've seen that the companies are dealing with this. in the case, for example, with specific exit survey, I think it's great to actually have an exit interview form as a validation a step, so that you can see whether there are things that are on the survey that are matching to an extent with the interviews, and to see whether there are certain things that people are more inclined to tell you live as opposed to answering in a survey setup. And there are other options of actually detecting this kind of sentiment, whether using the external website like Glassdoor data or Indeed.com data, depending on the size of your organization, the size of the sample that you have there, even the Slack and email communication channels and stuff like that, which I'm still very kind of cautious about, because I think that there is that Hawthorne effect of being careful of not kind of overstepping the measuring boundaries and changing the behavior of people just by measuring certain things, because it can have sort of detrimental effects on how employees are reacting to that. And kind of being constantly being aware of what is the ethical elements that you need to cover and to be mindful of.
Yeah, thanks, Luca. One thing that I would like to add as well is to maybe increase the frequency of those survey results as well. Obviously, you don't want to be badgering everyone with lots of surveys, but sometimes recency effect happens on those surveys, or people aren't necessarily wanting to share. So having a little more frequently will help really kind of drive the issue. And also just have some fun incentives or rewards for participating in those surveys too.
Yeah.
With recognition and rewards, just to kind of have them a little more motivated as well to answer those too. It's a great question there too.
Yeah, there's one thing that I did when I was a CHRO, and that helped us greatly, and that was when you were mentioning this kind of incentive, external incentives. We actually did a charity that was linked with the annual survey. So we did something that was measurable in such a way that what we did that time was water.org, and that's every survey is actually allowing one family access to water for a month or so. So it was a very measurable thing, just because you could one response could be measured to something that is scalable. So people reacted to that extremely well. We had the highest number of people who have responded. Sometimes that is not the right motivation, and then you can track the validity of the answers, how fast people went through the survey and things like that. But it's usually not as people are not as scheming and deviant as we tend to overestimate that characteristic.
That's a great point too as well. Yeah, and then some other great technical questions as well here for you too, Luca. I know in the question and answer from Luke, just mentioning about the infrastructure for employee experience, and how does accessible people analytics work towards employee experience transformation?
Yeah, and there's the end. Like I see it similar to customer experience transformation. I completely agree actually with the point in parentheses here. It is very similar to the customer experience. I think it does require a cultural change, or at least a cultural underlying or the baseline that exists. And this is something that was very mind-boggling to me generally in the companies, and that's when you think about all the other functions in the organization from the very early onset. Sales is going to be data driven, marketing is going to be data driven, product is going to be data driven, engineering is going to be data driven. So they're all usually in companies, there are all these components on the top management level that are kind of there. You have all the ingredients to make a soup, but sometimes, or quite often, HR just doesn't cross the chasm, and HR remains the only gut sort of feeling driven function, and that and then is being removed from the rest of the executive leadership team as to an extent the result of that as well. And I think that's a kind of a chasm. I think it's more like HR leadership that needs to adopt this kind of mindset that we need to build a data-driven function per se, because management is usually appreciating that kind of approach. It's just about being as mindful about what are the things that you should measure, and actually having a framework in mind, so that when you're coming in front of management, it makes sense, and it's not just a bunch of random numbers or dashboards that you're pushing around, which would not benefit your data-driven agenda. But it's a great point. I think it's a great point that is very similar to the customer experience transformation and that kind of mindset shift among the HR, or in this case, previously the customer success people.
Yeah, I think that also kind of segues as well into one of the questions for you from Mikael, Luca in the chat as well, is kind of building, so having those specific things that we're trying to find the data for. So how do you feel, or how do you approach building the survey part of things, specifically with the challenge of measuring what you intend to measure? So construct validity.
Yeah, construct validity element is a great point. I mean, me coming from the IS-Psych kind of background, how I navigated around this whole concept is actually by going into already existing diagnostic frameworks. So I'm usually using some of the tools that are well validated on the market, some that are academically tested as well. Denison Culture Organization Survey, for example, or Team Effectiveness, TDS, Utrecht's work scale for engagement, Amy Edmondson's scales for psychological safety elements, so that then you are basically using something that already has passed the academic rigor of factorial analysis and similar. The other point is, I mean, you can definitely build your own internal survey practice and bring someone who can do the factorial analysis around the surveys that you're doing. Sometimes you don't have to be as academically vicious in a sense that you need to have everything in line completely. Sometimes you just need to fill in the gaps when it comes to the information that you're missing certain info, and then build iteratively on the survey design through time. So there are multiple ways to actually tackle this issue, but my go-to is actually looking into what already exists on the market, but because a lot of diagnostic frameworks are already invented and we don't have to reinvent the wheel every time.
Yeah, great point, Luca, too. Another question that came in, kind of more related to, for me personally, I loved the like the exit interviews and kind of reframing the question of why people are leaving instead of just asking them that. We had a question come in asking about what do you see are the kind of the highest reasons why people are leaving their job. And I know a bucket list and kind of from what all of my experience with kind of that sense of belonging has usually been a very big one, is the lack of appreciation and recognition at work, and the misconnection between management and the employee. So that's kind of what we find is definitely the most popular is, people obviously lacking connection in the remote and hybrid area. So having a little more increased recognition and appreciation at work. In your side of things, Luca, do you find a main reason for people leaving?
I don't think they're main reasons per se. I think it highly depends on the market. We started recently working with the retail industry, for example, and in retail space, the salaries and rewards part is just making a huge difference because with the inflation, it's creating a big difference in people's life. So I think that's popping up always as one of the top elements for the lower income roles. For the higher income roles, it is usually about long-term kind of goals, about the company reputation. We're actually seeing that quite a lot recently with junior people when they're moving from one position to another, just because they're valuing that the company reputation could help them with their career growth in the future, or just learning something new for their entrepreneurial career. That has been a big one as well with the juniors that have been to an extent hoppy in the past 2 years. So there are plenty of different reasons that are just popping up. I think it's more about keeping a pulse on what's going on in your organization where your people are leaving, and not trying to deduce from everyone else.
Yeah, thanks, Luca. Another great question came into which I can kind of tackle, and would love to hear your feedback too, from Luca and Jenna. But it's asking what are the main points to ask when checking into culture experience for the company. On my end, I find two main things come to mind. The first is that if they understand and if they're living and breathing the core values within the company. That's kind of what your culture is based on. So you can even have analytics on that as well, but are they really living and breathing those for personal success and company success? And then some other questions that we find are quite successful is how, employees want to be recognized as well. And how often is that happening? So there's usually a disconnect between that manager and employees. So finding out how do you like to be recognized? So you can say, are you just like, your manager saying good job every once in a while? Would you like it publicly? Would you like it more frequently? Maybe from, maybe you appreciate it in front of everybody at a meeting. Maybe you don't. Maybe it's just an online kind of thing as well. So those are also different ways that you can kind of find how the culture and people's experiences on our end too.
Yeah, to jump into that with like a bit of academic puritanism on the culture, all the things that you're mentioning, for example, are very related to this core beliefs in the organization, whether you have the consistency between what you're saying and what you're doing, right? And this is like, even if you're looking into the culture frameworks, like Denison's organizational cultural model and similar, this is a big part of measuring culture. And this is something that usually people kind of jump into. That's like the core values aspect of the organization. The other points that I think are extremely important is just the adaptability of organization, how you're dealing with customers, how you're communicating to the market change and similar. I think that's also a big part of the culture experience that is also tying into the financial results of the organization. Another point is just the mission, goals, objectives, how they are set in the organization. That is a big part of how company culture trickle downs from top down to the bottom. And the last point will be the involvement of managers and kind of that career development opportunities. This is a big part of the involvement of experience between the employees and managers. So it's it'd be great if you're thinking about the cultural experience to think about it also holistically. I think consistency in this core values and whether you're walking the talk or your leadership, whether they're walking the talk is a big part, but also think about the other aspects of the market, how you're addressing the market, how you are looking into the vision, how you're dealing with objectives, and how your managers are communicating with your employees. I think those are like the critical, or academically speaking, the critical elements of the culture circle.
Yeah, I love that too, especially the roadmap, which is getting more and more important with employees too, is kind of having that, roadmap and those discussions and the open discussions to kind of see where you're moving and what those success factors and KPIs, like Luca mentioned. Yeah, great point. We do have, I think, one more question there in the chat box. I think that one's definitely for you, Luca. I'd be curious to hear as well, your favorite success story with some positive change for a company.
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple of them that I really like so far. It's I think like the big kind of narrative for me was just changing that kind of mindset and actually becoming a bit more data driven, because mid-market requires quite a lot of education on these topics. I think there's just moving down that barrier to entry into people analytics, where people are just adopting the numbers, is great to see. The actual case that we were going through is one of the cases that we had with the customer, and that is just resolving the issue of the people who are leaving, and they actually had problems with sales that was lagging, and that was a kind of a big issue for management team. So they were trying to figure out what the heck is going on here. And just using Orgnostic completely to kind of diagnose this process and to see where they're actually lacking when it comes to their employee experiences and moment that matter. That was one of the huge points of reframing the recruitment process for sales. So I think that's one really great success story that I like, just because it ties in completely to the business success, and it's not only like an HR win; it's a win for the whole company. But there are multiple other stories when people are kind of finding out the unknowns. For example, with engagement data, that they were like completely unaware of the certain points that were related to just the culture that I was just mentioning, and that's like adaptability. Whether adaptability plays a role in how people are actually reacting and whether they're staying and leaving in the company. We were also trying a couple of different projects, and we are running a couple of very interesting projects right now that are related to tying in a retail space the success of the store with the employee experiences. So I'm very, very curious to see how that is going to play out and whether we're going to make that kind of direct connectivity between the employee experiences and how the stores are performing and what are the critical elements, because I think that would be a great, again, entry into the boardroom level, where the discussion on the boardroom level is going to be about improving employee or changing the employee experience in order to overcome certain business issues and struggles. So those are some of the stories that I really like and I enjoy.
Awesome. Thanks, Luca. And yeah, hopefully we get to hear some more as well. And yeah, I think that's about time for us today. So as you can see on the slide here, feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn, send that request. We'd love to chat with you further. Also posting lots of content when it comes to retention and employee engagement and things like that as well. So feel free to connect with us and send us any emails you need as well. Really appreciate everyone joining us today. And a huge thank you from me to Luca and Jenna. Such great information to have. So thank you for spending your time with us today.